What if one naval battle decided the fate of the Pacific and the world? In June 1942, 4 Japanese carriers sailed toward destiny, and a handful of American pilots changed history forever. The Battle of Midway wasn't just a clash of ships, it was a gamble between 2 empires, fought on courage, code-breaking, and chance. Every torpedo, every wave, every heartbeat mattered. Stay with us and subscribe to uncover how one impossible victory turned the tide of World War II. 6 months after Pearl Harbor, Japan's empire stretched across the Pacific. Its navy had crushed every opponent, capturing territories from the Philippines to Indonesia. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the mastermind behind Pearl Harbor, sought to finish what he started by destroying America's remaining carriers. He believed another decisive blow would force the U.S. to negotiate peace. His target, a tiny atoll in the middle of nowhere, Midway Island. Midway was small, 2 islands surrounded by coral reefs, but strategically priceless. Whoever controlled it could dominate the Central Pacific. Yamamoto's plan was complex. Lure the Americans into a trap, ambush their carriers, and eliminate them completely. It was elegant on paper, unstoppable in confidence. But one thing he didn't know: the Americans were already reading his mail. Deep inside a hidden building at Station HYPO in Pearl Harbor, us codebreakers led by Commander Joseph Rochefort had cracked the Japanese naval cipher, JN-25. By May 1942, they intercepted enough messages to suspect that AF, a code name, referred to Midway. To confirm it, Rochefort staged a clever ruse. Midway sent a fake radio message claiming its water purifier had broken. Days later, Japanese intelligence reported that AF is short of water. The trap was revealed, and the hunter became the hunted. Armed with that knowledge, Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, commander of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, prepared an ambush of his own. He gathered what remained of America's carriers: USS Enterprise, USS Hornet, and the hastily repaired USS Yorktown. They would lie in wait northeast of Midway, hidden by distance and secrecy. The odds were grim. Japan had more ships, planes, and experience, but Nimitz had something Yamamoto didn't: information. On June 3, 1942, American reconnaissance spotted the Japanese invasion force approaching. Midway's small garrison braced for attack as waves of enemy bombers filled the sky. The battle began with chaos, air raid sirens, explosions, and black smoke rising from the atoll. American planes scrambled desperately, outnumbered and outdated, but fought with sheer determination. Every minute they delayed, the Japanese brought the U.S. carriers closer to striking range. At dawn on June 4th, Japan launched a massive airstrike on Midway. Their bombers tore through defenses, setting fuel tanks ablaze. But as they rearmed for another strike, their decks filled with bombs and torpedoes, a fatal vulnerability. Yamamoto didn't know that American carriers had already launched their planes. The Pacific was about to become a killing ground. From over 150 miles away, squadrons of American torpedo bombers took off, low, slow, and courageous. Flying obsolete TBD devastators, they attacked the Japanese fleet head-on without fighter escort. Wave after wave was slaughtered by Japanese Zero fighters and anti-aircraft fire. Entire squadrons vanished into the sea. But their sacrifice drew enemy fighters low, leaving the skies open above. At 10:20 a.m., fate intervened. Dive bombers from the Enterprise and Yorktown, running low on fuel, stumbled upon the Japanese fleet. Below them, the carriers Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu were exposed, decks covered with armed planes and fuel lines. In a single 5-minute attack, bombs tore through the decks, igniting infernos that consumed 3 carriers. The Imperial Navy's pride was burning in the Pacific. The shock was total. Yamamoto's carefully planned trap had become a catastrophe. Only one carrier, Hiryu, remained afloat, and she struck back with fury. Her aircraft found and hit the USS Yorktown, crippling it with bombs and torpedoes. But by evening, American dive bombers located Hiryu and sent her to the bottom as well. In one day, Japan lost 4 fleet carriers, over 250 aircraft, and hundreds of its best pilots. These were the same men who had attacked Pearl Harbor, irreplaceable veterans. The blow was not just military but psychological. For the first time, the Imperial Navy retreated. The illusion of Japanese invincibility had been shattered. The Battle of Midway lasted barely 72 hours, but its consequences echoed for years. Japan would never again go on the offensive in the Pacific. Its strategic initiative was gone forever. The tide of war had turned, from east to west, from defense to attack, and it all began with the gamble of a handful of men. Behind the headlines of victory was the brilliance of intelligence. Rochefort's team of linguists, mathematicians, and analysts had given Nimitz the decisive edge. They fought their battle not with bombs but with typewriters and logic. Yet their contribution remained secret for decades, hidden under classified seals. It was proof that wars are often won by those no one sees. Midway was also a triumph of leadership under pressure. Admiral Nimitz balanced boldness with restraint, trusting his subordinates to act independently. Rear Admiral Raymond Spruance, commanding in Nimitz's stead, showed calm precision despite chaos. His decision to strike when opportunity appeared, even with incomplete information, changed everything. In the Pacific, courage often looked like patience. On the other side, Yamamoto's plan was doomed by its own complexity. His fleets were scattered across thousands of miles. Communication was slow, and timing was everything. When surprise vanished, coordination crumbled. Even the greatest strategists could not control chance. Midway became the moment when brilliance met reality and lost. For the Japanese Navy, the loss was more than ships. It was the loss of experience. Pilots trained since the 1930s gone in a single day. Replacing them would take years the empire no longer had. The factories could build planes, but not courage or wisdom. Midway had broken Japan's strongest weapon, its confidence. The Americans, meanwhile, gained momentum that would carry them across the Pacific. From Midway came the victories of Guadalcanal, Philippine Sea, and Leyte Gulf. Every mile reclaimed traced its lineage back to those burning carriers on June 4th. In the grand arc of history, Midway was not just a battle, it was a turning point written in fire. The hunters had become the hunted. But victory came at a cost. Of 41 torpedo bombers from Torpedo Squadron 8, all but one were shot down. Pilot Ensign George Gay, floating alone in the ocean, watched the battle unfold, the only survivor of his squadron. His courage and that of his comrades became legend. Their sacrifice was the price of triumph. Midway also revealed the unpredictable nature of war. Had Yamamoto discovered the American carriers hours earlier, history might read differently. Had the dive bombers arrived a few minutes later, they might have missed their chance entirely. War is often decided not by strength, but by seconds. At Midway, those seconds saved the world. For historians, Midway stands as a lesson in intelligence, timing, and luck. It proved that technology and numbers mean little without information. The codebreakers' quiet brilliance mattered as much as the pilot's bravery. Both fought in different skies, one of data, the other of clouds. Together, they changed the course of human history. The Japanese public didn't learn the full truth for years. Official reports downplayed the loss, claiming a tactical withdrawal. But in private, Yamamoto knew the war's balance had shifted. He wrote, "We have awakened a sleeping giant and filled him with a terrible resolve." Midway was the giant's roar. After the battle, the ocean floor around Midway became a graveyard. The wrecks of carriers, aircraft, and sailors still rest beneath its waves, silent witnesses to the turning of the tide. Divers who explore the site today describe it as hauntingly peaceful. Time has turned steel into coral, and destruction into memory. Even victory leaves ghosts. Midway also reshaped global strategy. It marked the end of Japanese expansion and the beginning of America's island-hopping campaign. Each new assault, from Tarawa to Saipan, was built on the lessons of Midway: patience, preparation, and precision. In every plan, intelligence led the way. The Pacific was vast, but the path to Tokyo began there. The battle's legacy extends beyond warfare. It represents the moment when resilience overcame surprise and courage outweighed fear. The men of Midway faced impossible odds and still advanced. Their story isn't just about victory, it's about endurance, ingenuity, and unity. They proved that even in chaos, hope floats. For Japan, the defeat forced reflection. Yamamoto, the architect of the empire's naval doctrine, fell into silence. Less than a year later, his plane was ambushed and shot down, a casualty of the intelligence war he once dominated. His death symbolized the fall of an empire built on aggression. The sea he once ruled became his grave. In contrast, Admiral Nimitz became a quiet legend. He never boasted, never glorified the victory. To him, Midway was not a triumph of power but of teamwork. He credited every sailor, pilot, and codebreaker who played their part. True leadership, he believed, meant humility and success. Decades later, historians still debate whether Midway was luck or skill. But perhaps it was both, skill creating the chance and luck seizing it. The outcome was fragile, like a coin spinning in the air. Had it fallen the other way, the Pacific might have belonged to the rising sun. Instead, it rose for freedom. Today, the name Midway stands beside Normandy and Stalingrad as one of history's great turning points. It reminds us that wars are won not just by might, but by the courage to risk everything when the odds say no. In that gamble, America found its resolve, and Japan met its reckoning. The world's future was decided on a patch of ocean barely visible on a map, but its echoes still roll with the waves. Every year, veterans and historians gather to remember the few who fought there. Most are gone now, their stories carried by the sea they once conquered. They were young, uncertain, and afraid, yet they faced destiny without hesitation. Their legacy is not destruction, but balance. A reminder that courage can correct the course of history. Midway was proof that the smallest voices can roar loudest in the storm. The Battle of Midway was a gamble that changed the world, a story of intelligence, sacrifice, and impossible victory. And the lessons it left still matter today, that courage, clarity, and unity can defy any odds. Subscribe to explore more untold moments of World War II, where small decisions shape the fate of nations. Because sometimes, history's greatest victories are the ones that almost didn't happen.